Good morning, guys, and welcome to today's episode of The Dialogue. Of course, it is your host, Patricia, and I am up early, just really enjoying the morning. I love when I get up super early and can have the opportunity to bask in the silence of the world. You know, when you really get up early, even though there's might be a little bit of hustling and bustling from people getting to work, it is the silence and the quiet time for me that really reset my soul. And this morning I haven't had my coffee just yet. However, I'm in a good place when not only the silence that is taking place outside, like you can hear the birds chirping, it's just a harmonious moment when you can hear the melody of the birds because they're happy. You know, I don't know if you could see a bird that is depressed and they're singing or they're chirping. And so those are moments that I really just take in to spend time with God and do my devotion. And I always try to listen to a sermon or a message, something that will just continue to align not only the quietness that is outside, but also the quiet, gentle, and meekness that is taking place in my spirit in this new season of my life. And so, in that meditation this morning, in having time with God this morning, this was a topic that came up for me. And it's going to be very simple, it's not extremely complicated. What we're going to talk about today, well, let's just say the topic itself is not complicated. However, for some reason, I find that now I am seeing the complications of others when they're trying to experience this wonderful, beautiful thing that God has given us. And so today's topic is going to be about love. Today, we are going to be talking about love. And so, of course, I do have to be extremely honest and extremely transparent. However, it is with the hope that it helps someone. So I am the type of person, I feel as though I am a hopeless romantic. Like, I just love love. I love relational love. I love friendship love, any type of love that enters into someone's life. And so yesterday I was actually in a session with someone and I told them, I said, someone told me a long time ago that I have the gift of love. And ironically enough, I'm in my office, and in my office, there's so much artistic work because I'm an artist. I do paint, and I absolutely love vision boards. And when I looked up to my immediate right, under the word happiness, it said born to love. And so it reminded me of one of my all-time favorite movies, which is Eat, Pray, Love. And it stars one of my favorite actresses, which is Julia Roberts. And the movie is actually based on a true story from a book from an author that went through this conquest. She started to eat, and then she learned more about prayer, and then she learned more about love. But interesting enough, in one of the snippets from the movie, this man told her, "You have enough love to love the world." But she went through something prior to the understanding that she had enough love to love the world. She was going through it relationally. She went through it where her life just felt extremely empty. Like she said, she didn't have a pulse. And you know, you can be in the world and you could be alive as far as your heartbeat and your capacity to walk and function and move, but without a pulse in your life, like you're not living, like nothing is bringing you excitement and joy. And so she goes upon this quest. It's actually a very good movie with a lot of good points of wisdom and insight. But as I was thinking about that, I had to go back through my own journey of life and actually this past season of what I endured. And so this podcast episode is also from a point of inspiration, not just from this past season, not just from my life, but also that something that took place I would like to say last Thursday. And so I was out and about and I said, okay, maybe let's just go past the park. We have this park here. It is filled with so much greenery and people are walking around and walking their dogs and playing with their children. It's just a moment of a capsule of a moment in time with just so much beauty and greenery. And it's really refreshing. And I oftentimes visited not only when I'm just maybe stressed or having a difficult time, but I just try to make it one of my practices to get around people that are happy. And so at this particular time, we entered the park and there is a lady and she's with her children. And somehow I don't know a stranger. And so the children were playing and then her and I started to have a conversation. And it landed on a conversation about her child's father. And ironically enough, she told me that she had multiple children's fathers and some of the scenarios and situations that had taken place in her life with these gentlemen. And then she continued to say that she wished that she could start a group just with all women, no men. She didn't want any men around. And she was pleased to say that. And so I chimed in and I said, wow, that's really interesting because we are meant to cohabitate. I really presumed that she had taken up that notion that a lot of people say there are no good men and that she was extremely disgusted and devastated from her circumstances and situations that had taken place in her romantic relationships with men. And so we continued to talk and I told her, I said, hey, I love the aspect of love. And I just don't believe that just because one person or two or three people in your life that you decided to extend love to, if they were not able to extend it back, should cause such devastation that you make up in your mind that you don't want to not only give love, but receive love. And so I was just giving her small little things. And as I talked to her, I started to become overjoyed with the aspect of love. Now, this is the interesting part. She has not been the only woman that I have talked to in that season. Many of you don't know, and some of you may know that I have a daughter, and I went through some very traumatic things in my life as a single mother. Not only just with my child's father, but also people. I can honestly say that having a child, being pregnant, and commissioned with the responsibility to take care of another little human being is the most vulnerable experience that I have up to date. And I've been through a lot. I've been homeless before. I was almost sex trafficked going on a vacation to visit an aunt. I don't have a lot of family support in that way in my life. And so for me to say that, but having also past trauma, that this was something serious for me to say because I consider myself to be a very strong and resilient person. But once this can of worms and dirt and heartbreak opened, it was something that was unimaginable. And so I want to help you understand. I'm going to not only just talk about love, I'm also going to talk about heartbreak because as I was standing there, I was able to see a woman that had been heartbroken, but also one with so much humility to accept that it was as a result of some of her decisions that she chose to have children by these specific individuals. And so you're sitting there, you're talking to two accountable women that are not trying to brush things under the rug. Okay, in order to have a baby, you have to have sexual contact with someone. Now, don't misunderstand me because there are women that get assaulted and become pregnant. So this is not for them. This part, shall I say, but you have two women that decided to have sexual interaction. You have two women that decided to engage with men that at any time could change or decide that they did or did not want to deal with their kids. And so that is the risk that you take when you have sexual interaction with someone, even when you're married, because I know women that have been married and have children by men and they're not fully participating. That woman, they say, is a married single woman. She's taking on all the responsibilities as a mother and parent without the help of her husband. And so as I stood there, I was able to see a heartbroken woman. But the interesting part is that she was not the only. She is one of many women that I have spoken to. And there has been a trajectory that I have not been able to notice in women who have children and are devastated by their children's fathers. And it was so interesting because all of these women, after these circumstances and situations, had lost hope for relationships. We know that, I believe last year there was a list that went out of the type of women that you should not date. And I was very shocked and astonished to see that at the very top, number one at the top of the list was do not date women with children. And I thought that was so interesting because they didn't say do not date women with children who are bad mothers. They said do not date women with children, period. And so that put a whole stigma just on women overall and in general. Now, my perspective was, if you date a woman that's a good mother with children, you're going to get a nurturer. You're going to get someone that's loving. You're going to get someone that's supportive. You're going to get someone that's understanding. And maybe if she doesn't have all of those things, when she's a good mother and she's trying to be, she's working on it. With every breath in her body and fiber in her being, she's working on doing, changing, becoming, altering, adjusting to become that good woman. So in my heart, I said, why would you not date a woman with children? We'll leave that there. But as I continued to talk to this woman, I noticed that she was a heartbroken woman. But she was so honest to say after and during our conversation, like, hey, maybe your points are valid. Maybe I just need to heal a little bit more prior to deciding that I want to enter into a new relationship. And I thought that was so beautiful because she acknowledged, without telling me she was heartbroken, through her confession of I need to heal, that she was heartbroken, but that she was willing to take the steps to work on herself, to change and transform, not only to be a woman that gives love again, right? But to be a woman that wants to experience love. And so what I had come to understand through all these many women that I had dealt with that had traumatic experiences with their child's father. I've also talked to men that have had horrific and horrible experiences with the mother of their children. And notice, people, I do not for the life of me observe or acknowledge the term baby's daddy, baby's mama. That's my baby daddy, that's my baby mama. For me, that is the ultimate disrespect. Now, I have been paralleling and contrasting, or comparing and contrasting the different terminologies. When you think of baby daddy, baby mama, you think of an ignorant person that's just angry, bitter, upset, trying to destroy your life. Now, there is a difference between a child's father or that child's mother. This is someone that is showing up, that is there, that is trying to be the best parent that they are to their child. However, their parents are not intimately connected or maybe even like each other, but they're doing what they can for the best benefit of their children. But there is also a third type of category that I've been addressing with people, and it is a family man or a family woman. Now, let's be honest. We know that every circumstance or situation is different. It is even hard to blend two people in marriage, like two people coming together as one, which God originally wanted. But to have two people with different personalities trying to parent their children, at the end of the day, someone has to be a family person or a family man or a family woman to understand, hey, you're my child's family. So to the best of me, I'm going to do better by you. in order for my child to have what they need. Nevertheless, it takes time, it takes patience, it takes work, it takes confession, it takes change and transformation even to get there. So if you're on that journey, I definitely applaud you because it's exhausting, but it's well worth it when the kids can get what they need, and even sometimes when you can get what you need, right? Nevertheless, what I have determined is that the enemy wants to destroy hope for love through any traumatic experience, whether it was childhood, whether it's mom and dad leaving, abandoning, rejecting, whether it was a romantic relationship that you went into several times to try to salvage and resuscitate with your heart, only for your heart to be broken. I have determined that when the enemy is in a situation, and we could just be honest, people just sometimes are people and they don't mesh and their hearts get broken before they realize that we're not a good fit for each other. The damage has already been done. However, when the enemy gets a hold of a situation, that is his hope. That is the enemy's hope for you, that your heart will be so destroyed and full of trash and baggage from the past that you yourself don't make up in your mind and say, hey, this was one situation. This was one person out of all of the people in the world. He will even use personal relationships, family relationships, friendships, platonic relationships to destroy your hope for love. But the interesting part is a lot of people that have loved have been abused in their conquest to love someone. We even know that codependency is when a person gives up their whole life in order to be there to service another person that is never going to give back half or a quarter of all the sacrifices that they gave. Maybe all the money, maybe all the emotional bandwidth, maybe all the mental capacity that they gave to someone to show them that they love them. Because with codependency, that's not the goal. The goal is not for that individual to receive back. That goal is for that person to keep giving, which becomes bondage and slavery for a person that's not able to see it. Nevertheless, I want to tell you, if you are somebody that you love someone and they abused you and did you wrong, and you may have so much anger and resentment towards that person, I want you to take an opportunity to breathe. I want you to take an opportunity to rethink and reevaluate what you did. And we all know and have heard it said that when that person that you gave to met you, maybe years down the road, it took them forever to realize, dang, they really did love me. You did a good job. Why would you be mad about doing a good job? Maybe they couldn't love you back or pay you back or give you everything that you put out. Nevertheless, we are commanded as people to love. And so now with that being said, I truly understand why the enemy does everything that he can to destroy people's heart. I understand why he does everything that he can to destroy the hope for love through any means necessary. Because it is what Jesus died for. It says in his word, John 3:16, that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believeth on him shall not perish but have everlasting life. Therefore, God so loved the world, he wants us to experience that love of God. But the interesting part is that oftentimes when people come in and they devastate and they abuse and they mistreat you and they suck the life out of you, how is it that? And oftentimes it is that people correlate that person's love for God's love. And this is an honest moment of confession. That is something that I was recently doing. I did some things, I made some mistakes, and I made some bad decisions. And in my confession of humanity, the level of abuse and misuse and mistreatment and verbal and emotional mistreatment that I experienced from this abuse literally sucked the life out of me. And I remember telling God, Lord, I'm fighting not to hate. I'm fighting not to hate. And I remember confessing that to someone like, wow, it seems as though everybody around me is so hateful. And I mean, I've dealt with the passive aggressiveness, microaggressions. I've dealt with blatant aggression and disrespect. I've dealt with so much cruelty, hatred, and rage that I knew that as of Monday, that this was something that I needed to talk about. Because as I went through this, and guys, I listen, for the life of me, this is not a joke. I felt like Miss Seeley when she said, my whole life I've had to fight. My whole life I have observed and watched and been involuntarily put into situations and circumstances where people have projected hatred, no matter if they were coming into my life on false pretense or motives, like, hey, I'm there for you, I support you, but they were the ones that needed support. No matter if they're like, hey, I have an idea, we should work together, where it actually would be that I would end up be the one working and they would sit back like I was the slave and they were the master telling me what to do so they can benefit financially. No matter if they were emotionally disturbed and by the time we got done communicating whatever was going on with them, now it's in my spirit and I'm struggling and battling. People have found ways to prostitute the gift that God has given me. They have found ways, okay? And I think this is why a lot of times I was so exhausted, because they're finding ways to try to take advantage or manipulate or coerce me into doing something. And I'm fighting back to find ways to get out of it. Like, I didn't agree to that. But it was silent. These people never actually came and communicated it open with me. Like, okay, I'm going to take advantage of you, or this is what I'm going to do. They always came with the pretense of love. It always seemed like they were loving. It always seemed like they were supportive. It always seemed like they were going to be there. But God started to chisel down and break down those things and components, which left nothing but the conclusion that you don't love me. This is not love. This is hatred towards me. But then it led me deeper. Why is this hatred? Because you hate yourself. You need me to do for you what you can't do for yourself. And because I buck back, because I resist, now you hate me. But it's not a now that you hate me. You always hated me because your motives were never pure. They were never beneficial to me and you. It was always as a result of what be good for you. And ladies and gentlemen, please listen and hear me when I say this. This was not just men. This was also women. And I think this is the part that threw me out of my headspace. Like, and when I say threw me out of my headspace, it was like every day I'm like, okay, how could they do this? And how could they do that? And how could they do this? And how can they do that? It is easy to use someone and abuse someone if you don't like them. The hard part for me was that women are supposed to be nurturing, they're supposed to be kind, they're supposed to be gentle, they're supposed to care. So if you hate me, you don't. But if you hate yourself, you can't. If you hate yourself, you cannot love me, support me, and be there for me, and it be genuine from the core of your heart that you want to see me thrive and benefit and feel supported, loved, nurtured, right? So when you look at these situations, majority of the people that came that were competing, secretly jealous, envious, there's nothing else that I could say about them except that you were felt with the character of your father. Your father, not mine. And so oftentimes in these circumstances, I will find myself extremely drained. Like, why is it seem like this person sucking the life out of me? Because they were. In these people, it was so much darkness. But people also forget that you do have the gift of discernment, that eventually God is going to pull back so many layers from your eyes to help you see that person, to help you see them clearly. Like, you are not a loving person. You're not a forgiving person. You're not a compassionate person. We have two different fathers. You're serving your father, the devil, And that's what I determined. The enemy wants to destroy hope for love through trauma, but through trauma, he uses people to traumatize people. And this is why you've heard it said, hurt people hurt people. Sometimes I found that however they got used and abused, that's what they were bringing into my life or attempting to bring into my life. And so as I sat there and I spoke with that woman at the park, she got traumatized through somebody, which then destroyed her hope for love and a wonderful, beautiful relationship or an opportunity to experience love. And then that's what she was trying to put on me, project on me. Now, what I had to do was I had to be very careful, because when she said, I want to start a group for all women, oh, I'm all for it. I'm all for starting a group. But listen to the underlying message. This did not have to be a group of, oh, I want to come in and support women that they heal and they can forgive. No, she just wanted to start a group for women. And she said without men. So obviously in those conversations, it wasn't going to be helpful, beneficial things of women for women to heal from the abuse they experienced from men. This is what she would have needed to comfort her. But we see women doing this nowadays. And I'm a woman, so I'm going to talk about this first. We see women doing this nowadays, where unfortunately there is a movement taking place where women that are so hurt are using that hurt and pain to be able to exclude men. Like it's a hatred for men. Now, don't get me wrong. We're still talking about love. We're still addressing love. We're also talking about hatred, because a lot of women are so heartbroken. The majority of the women that I talked to had children. So it was their child's fathers that had broken their heart and broken their spirit and broken their confidence, broken their dreams. Because once these men decided, hey, I'm done with you, you're not serving what I want from you, these men decided to leave, and they left these women with these children. And now women were struggling emotionally, mentally, financially to take care of these children. Yes, they're broken. Most people think that women are just bitter because the man just left. It is not about the man. It is not always about the man. It's the fact that this woman can't find a daycare provider that is sufficient. It is the fact that the women went to the car shop just to get one tire fixed and are trying to con her into buying 4 tires. It's the simple fact that when a woman moves away, she gets a company that tells her they're going to charge her one rate. When they see that she's by herself, they charged her triple the rate of what they said. Listen to me and please understand. The enemy will use any type of person that he can to devastate you and your desire for love, your capacity for love. And you're so devastated now you don't have capacity for love. You don't even want it. I remember I was talking to one individual. This was when I was fairly young. I was about 18, 19 years old, and I had gotten my place. And at the time I was still doing hair on top of working my job and going to hair school. And so I was taking appointments at my house. And this one was not an appointment because they didn't pay me, but it was a divine appointment for me to understand something. I was talking to someone very close to me, very close. And I asked them like, hey, you don't want to be loved and you don't want to be in marriage? And they said no. And they explained that no one's going to ever love them the way that they need to be loved. And I said, wow, that's a lot of power to give someone. Right? And so this is what I'm seeing. I am seeing the stripping, not only of hope for love, the stripping of the power to understand that God loves you. He will give you love for yourself, but he can also be so powerful to send someone to love you. God works through any way and measure and mean that he wants to. But at the end of the day, if the enemy has stripped your hope for love, your faith that God can make something out of nothing and bring something to you from nothing, you're in a bad place. And as a mental health specialist, I'm going to be the one to tell you, you are in a bad place, guys. Please understand me, guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, as I have gone through this past journey, and it was so horrible. when the people came to me and I'm telling like, hey, let's forgive this person. The forgiveness was not for them. It was for you in order to put your mind back in a place of wholeness to move forward. People didn't want to forgive. People didn't want to dream. Most people, like, they just want to be single, mingle. People had given up hope for love because of their past experiences. And that person came in their life and did the last thing that they never thought that someone would do to them. One person. The most horrible part about it is that pain, that heartbreak, that hatred that people experience, people idolize that. They idolize it. They put it higher than God, as if God can't heal them, can't mend them, can't refresh them, can't revive them, just can't. And so as this thing has become an idol, I now see and can understand that God sent me into these people's lives. Every time I met someone at the park, every time I met someone at the grocery store, every time I was out and about with specific people, that He was opening their eyes to the possibility of love, which now I can confirm and do believe that I have a gift of love. Because I've been done wrong so many times by people. Like, oh my God, I can't count on my fingers and toes 10 times with 10 of them. And when they come back, I don't really say anything about the offenses that they've done. I'm pretty sure God has handled it. But in this last season, this was something different. The enemy used things that I hate. He used the things that I loathed. He used things that I never thought I could forgive for. He did those things in my life. But I kept pressing like, God, I don't want to be hateful. This was my prayer. God, I don't want to be hateful. God, I don't hate anybody. God, I don't want to be hateful. God, I don't hate anybody. And I had to keep confessing that because people were doing some very hateful things to me. And it's so crazy because I believe and feel that it was a season of that. Because I remember, I believe in 2023, I had relocated and I opened up my Bible and it was the story about Esther. It was Esther. But I landed on the part where Haman hated the Jews. And I landed on the part where Haman hated Mordecai. Now, Mordecai wasn't doing anything to him. Mordecai was just living his best life, but Haman hated him. And so he conspired this plot and this plan to destroy this man's life because he hated him. Theme is still hatred. Theme is still love. We're still talking about hatred. We're still talking about love. But he locked his eyes on Mordecai to cause him to stumble and to fall, and even got counsel from other people. Do you notice that when people hate people, there will be a gang of one or two or three or four people that co-sign in the situation to hate that person. We see it all the time. Women do it to men. One child's father makes a mistake, and then there's an entourage of 2 to 3 and 3 to 4 women that are single mothers that rally to hate that man. But what if they hate that man, but they don't know the full situation or circumstances? What if that woman is lying? And now 4 or 5 women are rallying around her, lifting her up in her pain and despair, but she's not telling the truth. And this man is hated. Mordecai did this. Haman did this. Mordecai experienced it because when Haman couldn't have his way, he went back to his wife and got counsel from her. And she started to tell him different things to do, erect the pole and have him hung up. And when they explained to me what type of display of hatred it would be if Mordecai was hung on the gallows, it would have been very humiliating and embarrassing for him. And he did nothing. Now, I'm not saying this to say that every time you have a bad feeling towards somebody that they have not done anything. Sometimes people have really done bad, right? But it is still the seeds of hatred. It is still from seeds being watered. And hatred is springing forth. I say all this to say, whatever your reason is that you hate someone because they've broken your heart, they didn't do what you wanted them to, the relationship didn't work out, whatever the reason it is for hatred, it is not worth it. Because I was walking around the house yesterday and I did this little painting years ago, and I announced it that it was prophetic. It was a message to me that it was a woman and she was floating in the air up, but she looked lifeless, like depleted. I didn't understand that, but she had these balloons that were around her wrist and her arms and her ankles, and the balloons were hearts. And if anybody remembers, there's a song, it says, "Love lifted me. Love lifted me. When nothing else could help, love lifted me." And now I understand it. I have experienced so much hatred, so much injustice has happened to me, so much lies, so many false accusations. Now, I'm going to be real. Some of the stuff that I did, but in order for the situations to be believed and the measure and extent to how people lied and falsely accused, in order for their sides to be believed, and this happened at work, this will happen in the workplace, this happened in family, this happened in personal relationships. The lies that took place from these people that were hateful, love lifted me. Some of these people don't know that I will pray for them behind closed doors, but I will also be honest with God and tell them how I really felt about the situation. I've been so hated to the point where God was like, do something good for those people. So I ended up taking donuts to enemies that violated people that I very, very much well cared about and loved. I've bought lunch for people. There were so many things that I've done to keep my heart right. And my confession this weekend was like, God, Lord, your word says that they may know we are your disciples by the way we show love to one another. And I also told him, Father, in 1 Corinthians 13, it said that you have all these gifts and all these things, but you have love, you have nothing. And then I told him, Father, I need your help, because when you come back, you're looking for that love that you've given me. And if I don't have it, what does that mean for me? If I turn into this hateful, bitter, spiteful woman, what does that mean for me with my relationship with you? I believe at that moment of confession that God put extra fuel in my tank. I feel as though he gave me another perspective, but I feel like he let me see this is something that is on God's heart. The level of hatred that is in the land right now is horrible. This is why you see murders, senseless murders. This is why you see so much abuse. The lack of love, the lack of self-love and self-care, and also the lack of understanding that God loves us. No matter if men hate you, they don't like you, they resent you, they're jealous, competitive, angry, God loves you. It's a song by Carrie Job, and I understand it now. I think this woman, I used to mentor young girls, and she bought this piece of paper to me, and it was so crazy because her name was Janae too. And she bought this piece of paper to me, and it was a couple words on it, and then she gave me a song, and it says, "Oh, how he loves us." It was by Carrie Job. And I understand that now. I'm still understanding it. When I say understanding, it is a process for me to understand and comprehend the level of love that God has for me. I don't want to say due to all the hatred, but it is. I'm understanding it because every plot, every plan, everything that everybody ever conspired against me, God knocked it down. He abolished it. He desecrated it. He removed it every single time. Every single time. And the bad part about it was that it was really driving me into a place mentally, because he was showing me, God was showing me what people were plotting and what they were planning and what they were up to and the lies. He would always make them confess in the most unconventional way what they were doing in order to stop it. But guys, I'm telling you this. It is God's love. It is his love. Yes, the enemy hates us without a shadow of a doubt. And he will use anybody that he can. But when you start to embody God's love and make up your mind that no matter what happens to me, I want to stay loving. I don't want to be hateful. Because people that are hateful, they're so empty. They're so spiteful and so revengeful. And that is not a full, abundant life. When I went through this journey, a lot of people that were around me didn't know how bad I was affected by the level of hatred. But they couldn't, because they also were coming around doing hateful things. In conversations, I could hear it. I could hear the competition for if I got married before them, the competition about the house and the car and the job, the competition about the hair and the body and the depth or density of hair, the competition as far as color, the competition as far as level of degrees and education, the competition as far as opinions, the jealousy. And all of this led into hatred. These people had a deep rooted hatred. And so what ended up happening was God loved me. He loved me. And he loved me fiercely and boldly. And I know people saw it, because when they came back, nothing had happened that they had conspired to happen, prayed to happen, or wanted to happen. It was because of God's love. So what I say to you is, if you are someone that has experienced heartbreak from people, please understand that a lot of times the enemy has a hand in that. And when you are a loving person, that is what he's coming to take. He's going to send people and circumstances that are going to break your heart with the purpose of you not aligning your heart with God. That you don't think that God loves you, that you don't even think that God cares. You don't think that God supports you. And then the crazy part is you just stop thinking. Like he wants to hurt you so bad that you stop thinking and that you stop having a possibility for hope and for love. And it's so beautiful because last week when I was at work, there's this woman at my job, and it's such of a connection. Like, it is so interesting because I'm the type of person, I don't connect a lot with people, especially if it feels fabricated. This feels extremely authentic for whatever reason. And we were talking last week at the end of, it slipped my mind. We were talking last week at the end of the shift, and when I looked at her phone case, on her phone case, it said the word love. And that's exactly what it is. I looked at her one day, I said, wow, you just have this regal beauty about you. And I couldn't understand it. I'm like, what is it? And then I kept looking. I said, this woman has the spirit of God in her, and she's loving. And it was like, wow. And I feel like God aligned me with her at the very moment where the enemy thought he had me, where the enemy thought he had sent so much hatred into my life that I was just going to give up on love. And it was so sad because you have to think about it. I had just talked to her that Thursday after our shift and then went to the park. And the enemy literally tried to come that quick and steal that hope from me with the woman in the park that was heartbroken. But when I left the park, I was in my car and I said, I do not come into alignment or agreement with anything that she said. Because you got to remember, when the devil came to Eve, she came into an alignment and agreement with him through a conversation that destroyed her and killed her spirit. The enemy made her align with the fact that God did not say this. You can eat of that tree. You can eat of that. You'll be fine. So when I was in the park with that woman and she was telling me, oh, I just want to start an all women's group. And this is how I feel about men and this and this and this and that. And marriage is this. If I would have came into alignment with that, she would have stole my hope. And the woman at our job, she reminds me of a specific type of woman. And this woman actually is like a very known minister. She reminds me of her, but it's because of the power and authority that she walks into. And then she's unapologetically her. And then also I can see this confidence on her. But it's such of a regal beauty. And you know what the beautiful part about it is, guys? She's married. She's married. And I told her, I said, listen, I can see it on you. You're happily married. She didn't have to tell me anything. I said, I could see it on her. And I said, wow, Lord, I thank you. Now I get a glimpse into what I have been attacked for. See, you don't understand, the enemy will attack you prior to you getting what God says for you. But I know I crossed over because when I saw her, I was able to see it like, wow, this is what the enemy is coming to take. The capacity and ability for a woman to be loved, not even just a woman, okay? But this is my situation, this is my story, my testimony. The enemy wanted to take that love that I had so been hoping for. I remember when I was 12 years old, and at the time I didn't know of the gifts and the callings on my life, but I remember I spoke this very vividly and candidly. I said, my whole life is going to change when I get married. And even though I professed that, without knowing, now I know. And right before the blessing started to align itself, the enemy set out on a mission to send all these people to me that were full of hate, try to destroy my life, character, reputation. Now, please don't misunderstand me. Some of the things that they said I did, it was correct. I did it because I'm not perfect. But I've owned up to a lot of things that I have done. But he sent all these hateful people. But I'm going to even take it a step further because I want to give God glory. God allowed these people to come into my life. And whether it was for just a moment of experiencing love from me, no, they did not give it to me. A lot of people didn't return it to me. God was dealing with people and telling them things to do by me, and they just would not do it. They would not do it. And so their level of hatred got pushed towards me in disobedience and defiance to God. Nevertheless, I stand here today, actually sitting, but I stand here today as a woman that is so grateful that God redeemed me out of hatred. Now, this is going to come as a surprise, but confessions are always needed. This hatred didn't just meet me in my adulthood recently after I conceived my daughter. This hatred has always been there. As a kid, people always tried to pick on me and bully me, and I always found myself fighting people, physically fighting family. I've gotten to several altercations that resulted in fights with family. I've gone through many things where it was just fighting for love. And no, you don't see me and you're not treating me how I should be treated, so much to the point where when I was younger, you did something to me, I cut you off, I changed my phone number, I blocked you. You didn't exist to me. And now I understand that you can still set up healthy boundaries, but you can still forgive. It's okay. You don't have to always deal with people, especially depending on how the enemy uses them. We always have the victory, but God also gives us wisdom to know when enough is enough. And so as a child, I just remember feeling hated, feeling unloved. I remember when we first got a computer, it was when computers were out, like the big top computers, not the small laptops or the Apple ones. But we got a computer, and I would type on the computer when I was like maybe 9 or 10, God equals love. And then I would print the piece of paper, which is so ironic now because I'm literally writing on paper as an author. But I would write God equals love, and then I would write God help me. And I didn't understand that. Why was I crying out to God for help? I didn't know what it was. It was because I was hated. It was because I was mistreated. It was because I wasn't seen. It was because I wasn't heard. I did not feel loved as a child. And so as time went on and I got older, I just attracted more and more hateful people. More and more hateful people. I can honestly say up until this point in my life that there has only been one person that loved me, but their love even was broken. But I can honestly say with that person, they genuinely tried. Like, I genuinely believe that when God would speak to me, he would say they love you. He would tell me that they loved me. But because of all of the trauma and everything that I've been through, as people projected their hate on me and abuse, it was very hard for me to receive that love, like rest in that love. It was very hard. And so I could understand why, sometimes a woman may get a good guy and a good man, and it's very hard to receive him because she is incarcerated to hatred. But with that being said, we all have a responsibility with ourselves. For one, it is for us to allow God to love us the way he wants to love us, whether it's taking people away from us or taking us out of situations and circumstances that are going to cause detriment to your spirit and your soul and your mental. Because mentally, when you're hated, it's something in your mind. It just breaks your spirit because you cannot understand. I've done nothing to you. But that's what the problem is. You didn't do anything to them. You are just simply being who you are. Being who you are, authentically who you are, is a mass weapon of destruction to people that are not authentic, to people that don't love themselves. It's like they try to take it out and annihilate it so people can't see that they really don't love themselves. A lady told me like a month or so ago, like, you're like a mirror. So in a mirror, you see yourself. And if I'm the mirror standing in front of people, they don't like what they see, we have a problem. But there's things about myself that I have issues and problems with too, because I'm not perfect. And that's the part that I didn't understand. Like, okay, I'm a human being. I have issues and I have problems too. What is wrong with these people, right? And I just feel like people just always have misunderstood me. Nevertheless, with the love of God, the love that he has given and showered over me to combat what all these people has done, has been nothing short of a supernatural miracle. When I tell you today, there should be no reason that I'm standing here. There should be no reason that in my mind I'm able to see these people clearly and still hope and pray for them in all honesty to God and let him have the final desired outcome. God is so sovereign. God is so sovereign, and God is so good, and God is so merciful, and God is so gracious. And I'm so grateful to God that he brought me into alignment and understand. And majority of you guys know I've had social media. I hardly ever take pictures with people. I hardly ever post pictures with people, because even when I have done things with people, somehow or another, they flipped over to the dark side and started to do things that were hateful that they didn't think that I realized. And so it is with so much beauty that as of last week, I feel like I met someone very similar to myself that is very loving, but also very assertive, not aggressive, assertive. There is a difference. There is a difference. So I am so grateful. I couldn't understand it last week. I'm like, wow. I told her, I said, it reminds me of like Mary and Elizabeth. Like, Mary was pregnant with Jesus. Elizabeth was pregnant with John. And God sent those two to be together. And when they got around each other, their babies left in their womb. And you know what is so ironic and crazy? In our office, we are literally sitting across from each other. So when I look up, she's right there. But when I tell you, from the first day that I met her, she was like, I don't normally tell people my business. And it's so funny because I'm actually really used to that. But someone has told me like, wow, she don't tell people her business. And we just talk and we just talk and we just talk. And it's not forced. And I say that to say I so appreciate it, because she doesn't even know that she has sparked hope again in me. And now I'm talking about the dreams that I used to have that I really stopped talking about them. But I told her when we came back on Tuesday, I said, I know what it is. I know what you're giving me hope for. And it is my hope that she's also getting something. But it is so beautiful how when God sees that you're really trying to cross over, that you're not trying to be hateful, vengeful, bitter, spiteful, angry, he will put somebody in front of you to keep that fuel of love burning in your heart so that it does not burn out. My question for you today: have you given up on love? With that question, I'm going to give you truth. If you have given up on love, you have given up on God. God is love. God is love. God loves us. His love for us is a sustaining power. So if someone has come into your life and they have destroyed your heart, ravished your heart, and damaged your heart, you have to take your heart back to the source, which is God. You have to take your heart back to the source, which is God, that he may heal you. Now, he may bring a person into your life that can give you some love. He may sit you down, make you confess or ask you to confess, right? Because God wants us to come willingly to him. And then he may heal your heart. Either way of however God decides to do it, if you have given up hope for love, you are in a bad place and you're exactly where the enemy wants you to be. And I come just as a servant and a steward and a messenger of God to tell you, take that to God. Ask God to heal you after you confess. You could tell him everything that happened to you and why you feel the way that you feel and why you feel like you want them to be got back and whatever else ill intent you have, because that's what hatred does. It starts to produce ill intent towards the person that hurt you. That's why they say forgiveness is for you. That person may not ever confess. That person may not ever apologize. That person may move on to the next person and make them a victim of their rage and projected heartbreak. But nevertheless, for you that listen to this episode today, we are determined to love. We are determined to not give up on love. More importantly, we're determined not to make an idol of our pain so much to the point where God feels and see that you have lifted that pain above him and you do not believe that he is able and capable to heal you and set you on a path where the result is abundance of life and love. Have you given up on love? Because as of today, I stand here as someone that has been hated immensely, and I can honestly tell you, I have not given up on love. You could probably hear the smile through this episode. My cheeks are just bursting forth. I say that because normally when I smile, my cheeks are a little bit bigger, so my eyes get, closed. But God is good. And God wants us to not only love others, he wants us to experience love. If he didn't, he would have never sent Jesus Christ to die on a cross for us. And that's what some of that love for you guys has done. It has caused you to die to your flesh and understand another person and be compassionate. Like, wow, if they hurt me like that, they really must be hurting. Because when we sin and fall short, we hurt God, but he still loves us. So are we able to extend that to another person who has wronged us or wronged someone that we loved? But that's a whole nother episode for another day. So with that being said, don't feel bad if you love someone and they didn't love you back. Just know that God's love is enough to compensate for what you didn't get, whether for your mom, your dad, aunts, uncles, family, friends, co-workers, romantic relationships, wherever you feel like you didn't receive. God is able to fill your heart with a love that is so full of comfort and peace and joy. If you allow him, because you have not and you are deciding to not give up on love. So I am so excited for this episode. I truly hope that it blesses somebody because it so blessed me. I want to thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of The Dialogue. It is my hope that something that was said on here sparked fire in you. Fire in you for love and possibility and new beginnings and opportunities, and to forgive and to pray for people that hurt and harmed you, because oftentimes they're hurt themselves and the enemy can just use them because they're hurt. But nevertheless, just know that God so loved the world that he sent Jesus Christ to die for you. And that's all the love that is encompassing that your spirit needs. Thank you guys, and I hope that you have a wonderful day. Please, please, please share this episode with someone that you may know that is very hateful, very vindictive, very bitter, very angry, and let it be a seed that you sow into someone's life. Thank you so much, guys. Have a good day, and we will be back soon with more episodes of The Dialogue.